Hi, everyone. I'm here with James Gardner, and we're talking about AI and talent. James, I've got a big question for you, but just give us a quick intro to you in case anybody hasn't seen the first couple of these that we've done or doesn't know you.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you, Adam. So I suppose best way of describing myself is a strategic talent leader that works mainly with investor-backed organizations and enable them to scale and really to understand that talent is a true commercial lever, not just a process. And hopefully through that, build the supporting structure that enable organizations to scale at pace.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the supposition that AI doesn't make talent strategic, talent leaders make talent strategic. Your comments.
Agreed. So I think the best way of looking at this, first of all, is to understand that AI creates the opportunity, is probably the best way to put it. The real question is what actually has to change for talent to be treated as a true growth partner, as opposed to, as I mentioned before, a process, a system, an order taker, merely just a cost. And I think from my perspective, there's probably five key aspects that need to change. And strangely, I don't think any of them are particularly, let's call it technological, because obviously we're thinking about AI being technology, etc. But I think first of all, the ideal is timing. Talent leaders, especially, we need to move upstream. We need to be far more involved in what I'd call the infancy of understanding why specific resources required, and really getting into the process before requisitions are approved. It comes from being involved before the requisition point, when workforce plans are happening, when trade-offs are being understood, and really when sequencing really matters. Because if you look at talent, when talent becomes insight as opposed to a process, the capability gaps are looked at, market scarcity is understood, timing and risk are understood, and those delivery implications become so much more important, because we don't hire people for the sake of hiring people. We hire people to make a impact or take the organization further through its organizational development. So if we're then involved at that earlier spot, we're then understanding influence comes from showing up earlier, not just working faster. I mean, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. So a lot of that's about critical thinking and the ability to be able to interpret nuance and the ability to achieve influence and use your emotional intelligence. Technology doesn't support, doesn't provide leadership.
Well, I think if we go back to one of our earlier sessions, we talked a lot about automation. We talked a lot about where automation can get you a certain way along the journey, but we still require human judgment. And that then brings in things that we can discuss further down the line around empathy, around bias, because yes, we all talk about AI hopefully getting kind of eliminating that human bias that comes into hiring. But what it actually will do is place a lot of that bias based around how that AI construct has been achieved. So I think the main thing we're saying is that AI will definitely automate and get us and extract, shall we say, the information we require. The big question is, how do we interpret that information?
Yeah, okay. So I've got a question around talent leaders in that case, because a lot of what you're describing here is actually very logical thinking and very ability to really understand a problem and get to what are the potential causes and potential solutions. And I wonder if the future of talent leaders is not even necessarily people from a talent acquisition or talent management background, and whether they could be coming from other things like sales or like engineering or other leadership roles.
I mean, yes, I would definitely agree. I think what AI does is change the operational structure of what talent does. I think if we look at it from a data point of view, data doesn't create influence, insight does. So, does that insight necessarily need to come from talent acquisition professionals? Possibly not. But I do think that the premise of talent acquisition will still remain the same. We're just being moved further up the process. And I think what will make the, if we look at it at the moment, as a talent acquisition partner, we see velocity is important. We see quality of hire as important. We see people who get things done quickly as being important. That I think is going to change. I think we're now, because through automation, a lot of those initial steps, those initial tasks, will be eliminated from a large percentage of human input. So if we're then looking at where does the human piece come into play, it's in the insights, it's in the thoughtfulness, it's in the understanding of what the data that we're being provided, how it matters. If we think about talent acquisition, a lot of organizations still treat talent organized as a service, as simple as that. There's no real partners. But when we're thinking about talent, we actually want to know what matters, where are we exposed, and what are the trade-offs? Because what we're actually thinking about is what is the impact of not securing the right individual within this role. We're not thinking about let's just hire a person who does this. We're thinking about how does that impact our business? How does that make us more commercially viable, more profitable, increase margins, etc., etc. So what we're actually doing is, as a talent leader, we need to translate that data into decisions, not just metrics. I mean, historically, you'll know this full well, Adam, that we've looked at data in a point of view of saying, what's our time to hire? What's our cost per hire? What's our, hopefully, our quality of hire? Not always, but they're all historic pieces of data. We've just used it as a dashboard to inform the C-suite. What's the C-suite actually getting from that? Not actually a great deal of insight.
James, what are the if I agree with you on all of that, which I do,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm starting my career today in 10 years from now, I'm head of talent. What are the jobs I'm going to be doing between now and then? Because I'm not entirely sure where the future heads of talent are coming from. I mean, this applies to head of finance, it applies to head of marketing, it applies to heads of lots of different white collar jobs.
I think that is a very poignant question for the current time. And honestly, would I say that I have the complete answer to it? No, I don't. I think what we'll find is we will still have what I'll call a career path that exists within talent and talent acquisition. It's just the makeup of those individuals is going to be very different. I think the makeup of those individuals are going to be AI literate, number one. Number two, will they be able to develop their own agents? Will they be able to truly kind of automate process? So that capability maybe leans more to someone who is what we might call a talent operations individual at the current time. I think the bigger question is, what does the entry level look like? Because traditionally we would bring people into a TA function and they would be a sourcer. They would be market intelligence. And we can source all of that quite easily now. So yeah, I think there's a big question mark around what, number one, the makeup, number two, the size of teams going forward is going to be a lot smaller because we're going to get far better cost efficiency ratios. But it's I think there is a lot of understanding that will come out in the future around how talent and talent acquisition teams are going to be formulated. Are they going to be very different from they have been historically? Yes, definitely they will be, without a shadow of a doubt. And I think that kind of wraps in what I would call, from our perspective, and I think it's not just a talent and talent acquisition question, it's an organizational question, because we keep talking around AI and talent, because talent obviously is our focus. But in many respects, we're being used as a scapegoat function at the current time to understand what can AI do for us. But I mean, AI is going to come into operations. It's going to come into finance. It will definitely come into marketing. We're going to see the shrinkage of marketing functions to a huge extent. So what we need to question is our willingness to change. And that means that we're looking at behavioral aspects. And I think if you look at, we go back to talent acquisition, strategic partners don't execute. What we need to do really is challenge. And historically, in organizations, have we had that ability to challenge at the right, well, with the right level of influence and at the right level? We need to be comfortable to say this hire isn't going to solve our underlying issue, because in many respects, we've always just been told, hire this. We need to move further up the chain to understand why.
No, I agree with that. And I also agree that a lot of the future heads of talent, they're going to come from a TA operations background. They're going to be people that are putting processes and systems and technologies together and creating experiences through that and solving problems in that way, almost with a bit of an engineering type of mindset. But
Mm.
I had, while you were talking, I was thinking, I wonder if the talent acquisition function is going to be a lot more left-brained than it used to be. But at the same time, I think that it does need to have that right-brained emotional intelligence associated with branding and
Mm-hmm.
how to achieve competitive advantage through market positioning and what does the EVP look like and what should it include and what's our employer brand supposed to convey? And I think that that's much more of it. So actually, there still will be a bit of a spectrum.
I think one of the things that we um, don't take on board suitably in talent acquisition is that we have a plethora of skills that we develop, a plethora. And I think organizations are also wholly unaware of the levels of skill set they have within their talent acquisition teams, because we focus on operations, we focus on relationship building, we focus on sales, we focus on marketing, branding, messaging. What are the signals that we're taking out to the market? So if you think of that skill set, it's actually very easily transferable within organizations. And I don't think there's enough of that. If I go back to distributed, two of my team were stolen to go into project management because I'll say because I developed them well, but no, they had the skill set already there. But I also think it's how do I put this? The future of what talent acquisition does is still requires organizations to view us in a differing light, because the reality is that talent is the absolute cornerstone to the success of an organization. You can have the best product in the world, if you don't take it to market effectively, it doesn't matter. So that then requires talent and talent acquisition, and specifically talent leaders, as we spoke earlier, to move earlier on in the sequencing, to move more capable in terms of influence. That comes from how we interpret our data to make it more impactful and forward looking as opposed to backward looking. And if we really think, without having that ability to challenge, we can't move away from being a service function to being an advisor. Advisors come into a situation and they challenge the status quo. If we can't challenge the status quo, or we don't have the actual kind of the format to be able to do that, then we remain a service. So following on from behavioral pieces, it's then mindset to me, and it's mindset of both the organization and the leadership in the organization and the talent function. And if we don't stop positioning ourselves as a support service, because that's how we're viewed, and then we need to start operating as a business partner. And we call our teams talent partners, but we've got to encourage them to actually operate and align with their function, with their hiring managers, whoever there are, and to be involved in, okay, what am I planning to do with my function in the next 6 months? Okay, this is my ideal scope, this is my ideal shape of my business. Okay, we will provide you intelligence to how you do that, what the scarcity of skill set might be. So then we actually move ourselves up that food chain.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is we're framing options, we are surfacing constraints,
Yeah.
but we need to own outcomes. We don't own outcomes at the moment.
No, that's where we
And
need to go.
often we'll sit there and, I don't know, we'll have a difficult hiring manager, or we'll
Yeah.
have a number of candidates that's gone through a hiring manager and nothing's coming to fruition, or a hire is made and we just say, well, hang on, my role stops when I provide someone to you, Mr. Hiring Manager, you made the decision. No, we need to take accountability for that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And that's the only way we change this. And so I think, how to put this, look, AI is not what makes talent strategic. It creates the space to enable us to be strategic. Leadership needs to determine what fills that space. And that's, I kind of think, the premise of everything that we've been discussing.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Um, James, thank you very much for your time today. I would like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to do another call with you next week, because I want to, there was something you said which I really think we need to go into a bit more detail, and that is that organizations, most important asset is their people. There is an ironic paradox here, I think, which is no company is trying to increase headcount at this point. However, as a result, I think that means that the focus on talent is actually potentially going to be even more intense. So I'd love to talk to you about that next week.
Sounds good. And then we will do that. As per usual, thanks for taking the time, Adam. And hopefully the people out there are enjoying this. We shall
Yeah,
see. We shall
great.
see.
Cheers. All the best,
Fantastic.
James.
You too. Thanks,
See you
Adam.
soon.
Bye-bye.